Hello, listeners, and welcome to Pop Screen, a podcast that was never new and it never gets old. We are that corner of the geek show that likes to look at the good, the bad, and the preposterous in movies either starring by or about pop stars. No, the podcast covers a broad range of musical and cinematic genres, from country and western to hip hop, from documentaries to science fiction. I'm your host, Graham Williamson. I'm a filmmaker whose new short, Song of the Suburbs, is currently showing at various locations across the UK. And I'm a regular critic for The Geek Show, and I've been joined this week by...
Hi everyone, I'm Joe Miller. I'm from the Dreaming Machine section of the Geek Show podcast that deals with animation, so animated TV shows, movies, but I also branch out into other bits of the Geek Show as well. I write some articles about video games, things like that. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here again.
Yeah, always fun to have you on. What's the last thing we did?
So the last two things have been immensely complicated. Like I think the second last one was Sly Lives, and then the last one was Wings of Desire.
Yeah,
it's a very metaphysical, like philosophical, complicated.
We've been keeping the quality very high on your episodes. We're gonna have to find a way to fix this.
I mean,
get you some shit.
I think one of the first ones I did was burlesque, so it made up for that. To be fair,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, but we are doing the Coen brothers film Inside Llewyn Davis, a film that poses the eternal question of do the Coen brothers just not know how to spell Llewellyn?
Yeah, I've read that online that it's not actually the Welsh spelling.
No.
Yeah. And there's a backstory that it's his Welsh mother, isn't it, in the film, and that's why, like, a Welsh mother who is also confused by the Welsh language. But yeah,
relatable. Yeah.
It
could be a Welsh mother whose son's name is logged at the registry office by a drunk non-Welsh dad. That would explain it.
That would, yes, that's a good point. Yeah,
I was supposed to have a middle name, but my dad over-celebrated and ended up forgetting to write it on the birth certificate.
Is that genuinely true?
That's genuinely true.
Wow,
yeah,
that's incredible.
That's a piece of law there.
I had no idea. That's amazing.
So
it's better that he didn't give you a middle name than give you a drunkenly fueled middle name, I guess, in that situation.
That's very true. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. I ducked a bullet there.
Yeah. So sorry, let's talk about the film. Yes, let's carry on.
Let's talk about the film. Yeah, this is the first in the yet to be completed Carey Mulligan folk singer trilogy.
Yeah. What was the other film? It was with Tim Key, wasn't it? The
Ballad of Wallace Island, which just came out earlier this year. Yes.
Which is a lovely film, very sweet, film with great music as well.
Yeah. This is also lovely and also has great music, but it is somewhat darker in that Coen brothers way, I would say.
Yeah, that's kind of like when I do notes, I do like my headline notes at the top, like my quick summary before going into detail. And I wrote funny but underlying sadness and melancholy about how life is messy and lots of dreams go unfulfilled.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
this is sort of, I guess the sort of template of it is Amadeus, right? The drama about the person who's there at a critical moment in musical history, but they're not the ones that make history.
Yeah, and it's those kind of sliding door moments and poor decisions, and
Mm,
fate takes a hand, like deals a hand or whatever the quote is, that kind of thing. Um, it's interesting because I watched it first time with yourself, um, like as part of a group, and I
mm,
noticed melancholy, but I found it um like very funny, like in lots of places. When I rewatched it on my own, like the more sad aspects or like deep aspects like filtered through more. Like it really
right.
does do that funny, like sad thing.
Yeah. I don't know where I would place it. Is it more funny than sad? I don't know. I think the thing that because of course a lot of Coen Brothers movies are very funny and have quite a dark, sad element to them. That's just their tone, and everything is to a greater or lesser extent on that
Mm,
borderline. I think I found this sadder at first because it's one of, I think, 2 films they did with Bruno Delbonnel rather than their usual cinematographer, Roger Deakins. And it does have that very sort of washed out, wintry, narrow focus look, which I find is just inherently kind of a sadder look than Roger Deakins's big, bold compositions and colours.
yeah, I mean that's interesting because I was reading that, was it I wanted to say it was Janis Joplin. It was like someone who's around like that scene at the
Was it
time.
Suzanne Vega?
Yeah, it was. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Who complained, like, so the film generally got really great critical praise,
Mm.
but she complained that it didn't represent the '60s like New York she recognized. It was all like grey and like miserable,
Yeah.
basically. Uh, so that, yeah, it's just to your point, really.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things revisiting it now that are interesting, in terms of us being over 10 years on from when this film was released and it being a slightly different cultural context. I think one of the things that I brought to it this time was that I've now seen the big budget remake of this film by James Mangold, which is a complete unknown, a film which is rather more similar to Inside Llewyn Davis than I think it intends to be, but which
Mm,
it actually does a very good job of portraying the kind of New York folk scene that Suzanne Vega is talking about there,
yeah.
where it's a very communal scene and it's a very mutually supportive scene until that prick Bob Dylan plugs in an electric guitar and ruins everything.
Yeah, damn him. Yeah.
No, it's funny. We should talk a bit about folk because, I'm not into folk musically. Some of the bands I love are influenced by it. There's a few artists like Nick Drake I'm very fond of, but I find it more interesting, like as a cultural item. The meaning of folk, the culture of folk, than the actual music. I think when I was growing up, it was that story about Bob Dylan plugging in the electric guitar was always told in a sort of mocking way, like these smelly folkies, they don't understand true rock and roll. When you watch something like A Complete Unknown, which I do think is a very good film, probably the best of the current wave of musical biopics, but you do sort of find yourself thinking, was it worth getting rid of this very political, very cooperative, very anti-celebrity kind of form of music in order to have rock stars? Like, was that a fair trade-off exactly?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think myself with folk, like I have phases when I'm quite into
Mm,
it and phases when I'm not, and it's very locale specific, weirdly, like for myself. So like, there's a lot of cool northeast singers I'm into at the moment. I used to live in Burton on Trent, which has fantastic pubs,
yeah.
microbreweries, and like locally brewed stuff. And there was like a regular like folk like night where people just sit down and play together. There's a local like Derbyshire singer called Lucy Ward, who I idolized for a brief period, who do like a cappella, like really old school, like English style folk.
Yeah.
And I remember like I went to a gig with her, and I sat on the table as her dad. He said, "How does a folk star make £2 million? They start off with £4 million." So it was like that kind of like old joke about how unsuccessful they are, which I thought was funny, and like knowing like from a family member. But
Yeah.
so yeah, but I can't like I definitely can't claim to be like that knowledgeable about especially in New York scene, like which looks really interesting. And I even though it's kind of got that grayed out like melancholy vibe, like it does seem it's still quite exciting, like the club and the
Yeah.
performances and there's like the music's incredible and like you have
Mm.
and like very interesting personalities despite that like a sad undertone. I don't know. So it portrays it in a positive sense in that way, I guess.
No, I agree, and I think the music is depicted very lovingly, even if the scene and the people in it maybe aren't, or at least not as much as Suzanne Vega would want.
Yeah, for sure. I did like because I read it. I think you mentioned as well, Graham, that the Dave Van Vonk's like autobiography was like
Mm,
an inspiration for it. So I did listen to some of his stuff in prep for the
mm,
podcast. I have to confess I wasn't aware of him before, like having seen the film. And I think it's maybe more his life story than his style of folk. Like like Oscar Isaac's like fantastic in it. His voice is beautiful, but I
mm.
think it's like less raspy and more like and maybe a bit different. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think the explanation that Elijah Wald, who co-wrote Dave Van Ronk's autobiography and who wrote the book that A Complete Unknown is based on, so they really are the same
Yeah,
film. I'm making this a thing. Um, but he said Llewyn is not Dave, but the music is. And I think there's like a corollary to that, which is that Llewyn is not Dave, but a lot of the things that happened to him happened to Dave. Like he really did hitchhike in order to audition for a record for a like club owner,
yeah,
and then find out that the guy hadn't even received his demo and the whole thing was just a total mistake. I think the big difference is that by all accounts, Dave Van Ronk was a really sweet guy who would have regarded that as being very funny.
yeah,
Whereas with Llewyn Davis, it's yet another indignity that he's just going to brood and seethe over.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a fair summary. Yeah, no, I agree. But you do really feel like for Llewyn, don't you? Like over the course of the film, even though he's kind of like he causes lots of problems for himself, really, as he
Mhm.
goes through the film.
Yeah, he's a very canonical Coen Brothers hero in that half of his problems are caused by his own idiocy, and half of them seem to be the work of some genuinely malevolent god who is just tormenting him with the worst possible luck.
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to work out if the start and ending of the film like
Mm,
lent into that because I read that the starting point for the movie from the Coen brothers point of view, and they did go through like quite a long gestation period, and it, like was
mm,
this image they had of someone from the Greenwich scene being like attacked for some reason.
yeah,
And then they mentioned that at some point they threw in the cat because they needed some kind of plot like to the movie.
yeah, yeah,
which if you've seen this finished thing, like kind of makes sense, like all of that put
yeah.
together. But just kind of like there is a plot explanation which you find out at the end for why he's attacked, but it's like it's still kind of but you can't even see the figure and it's like
Mm.
it just feel like oh here's another like twist of fate and just more stuff to go through. I mean that's the way I took it anyway.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I love about the Coen brothers is that when you reach a complete mastery of screenwriting and plotting in your first feature, where do you go from there? And they've consistently found interesting ways I love like the way that late Coen Brothers films like this, or like Hail Caesar or A Serious Man, are
Yeah.
really like right on the edge of having a completely incoherent narrative, and yet something just keeps pulling them together. I mean, the cat is, the cat is like the memoir in Burn After Reading. It's like the rug in The Big Lebowski. It means nothing, but somehow it just about exerts enough gravity to tie all these incidents together.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The cat does mean nothing. I think I was trying to ascribe meaning to the cat, like, like to very little effect. And like what I just said about the making of it shows that, like, from the Coen brothers' point of view, the cat wasn't that significant. But just like the opening scene where the figure who attacks Llewyn, like Llewellyn, like walks off and um,
Mm.
like transitions like into the cat, and the cat's.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I was trying to work out if the cat. This sounds stupid. It is stupid. I think like resembles fate or something, or just like that cold indifference. But I think I'm reading too much into it, and it's a cat.
Well, no, I'll match you with that. I think when I say that these devices are meaningless, I suppose there's a sense in a lot of the Coen Brothers films that the world is basically meaningless, and that it communicates tone very effectively if your hero's life can be ruined by something as simple as a friend's lost cat, which anyone who's ever owned a cat will know they go missing all the time. And part of cat ownership is you just learn to accept that this happens. But there's something that's kind of funny and kind of tragic about the fact that all of these things that Llewyn has going on in his life, and the thing that really causes the whole house of cards to tumble down, isn't the junkie he's trying to transport to a gig. It isn't his ex-girlfriend asking for him to get her a back alley abortion. It isn't
Yeah.
any of these very serious, weighty things. It's just a
Mm.
fucking cat.
Yeah. I mean, like Carey's like character, Gene even says like, that's what you worried about the cat, like after everything you
Yeah,
just told.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it does cover like yeah, on the serious like notes, as you say, like there's some very like dark, like serious topics in it, like suicide, like
Mm.
back alley abortion. And so it is like so it just deals with some like very heavy. I don't really have much more commentary than that, but it just deals with some very like heavy themes, and it's not afraid to look at like that in the kind of context of like early 60s like America as well, and what that
Yeah,
situation would have been like.
yeah, it's pretty matter of fact. I know when it came out, there were a few people who were like, "Oh, would they really be that blasé about abortion in the early '60s?" But I think that too, if memory serves, is one of the things that they picked up from Dave Van Ronk's memory of the folk scene around that time. Like I do, but it wasn't a picnic, but I do think that procuring an abortion in like Bohemian New York in Greenwich Village was probably a very different matter to doing it out in Kansas or somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, like they're still serious topics now, of course. Like, I
Mm.
didn't mean it that way, but I guess the context of how it was accessed and equity of access, as you say, was important.
Yeah,
I mean, on a far less serious note, I was thinking like some themes like are quite constant, like record company execs, like especially that time period,
yes,
like are often like clueless or frustrating, or maybe that
yeah,
is kind of a 60s thing. Like so it's massive digression, like but it's just I was watching the Beatles anthology series recently, seeing all like the
yeah,
rejections of the Beatles, the refusal to put out a single in the US, and um, I do think there was always a lot of like there's a there's always been clueless record execs, but definitely like in the 60s, I think at that time.
mm.
Yeah, as a less serious like digression, but yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the big record industry sort of moment here, the moment where it really tackles that is Bud Grossman, the character played by F.
yeah,
Murray Abraham. who is, I mean, there's a lot of very clearly based on characters here, but he's one of the most obvious ones in the real life figure he was based on is called Albert Grossman. And he's played by Dan Fogler in A Complete Unknown, which, as discussed, is the same movie as this. But something I picked up on this viewing that I hadn't noticed before is that the advice he gives Llewyn for like becoming more successful it's about his image. He says, trim the beard down, stay out of the sun. And you realize that he's asking him to look like Jim Berkey, the character who was both stolen his girlfriend and stolen his career.
Yeah.
And that character is played by
I forget the name. My apologies, Graham. So I ruined your big punchline.
It's Justin Timberlake. It's Justin Timberlake is the.
Oh, you trying to draw real life analogies there?
Well, no, actually, I'm just sort of. I thought it would be a good time to introduce because we're not just
pop playing Casey
about folk music. It does actually have a very prominent role for a musician.
Sorry, Graham, just because that was a very good lead up that I ruined. Just to explain my confusion, I read it was based on a real life producer, and there was actual advice he gave to a singer. It was about saying "out of the sun."
Oh.
So that's kind of why I was a bit confused. And like, yeah, so it was a female singer who the real life producer is based on. He advised like stay out of the sun, like literally. That's what I read.
Wow,
So,
I didn't know that.
so it's kind of a composite of real life things, as you say. I mean,
yeah.
onto Justin Timberlake, of course. Like depressingly, arguably, I had to do very little additional research for this podcast because I know quite a lot of his music. Anyway,
I think if you're our age, it has been a part of your life. You know, most of what I know about Justin Timberlake, I've learned against my will, but there was a time when he was as unavoidable as a celebrity possibly could be.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. This is really embarrassing. I remember. So I should announce it on the podcast, shouldn't I? But like, I remember at university buying his Future Sex Love Sounds album because it was produced by Timbaland and was like kind of well regarded. And I kind of hid it from my friends at the time. I remember when I bought it, and it was kind of like with that and Nelly Furtado's Loose, and it was kind of
great record.
Yeah, it was just kind of pop music having a little more culture. Like I think nowadays people don't care about that anywhere near as much as we did back then, like in the 90s and the noughties. But yeah, so he did have some great records, especially with like Timbaland. And I mean, the 2020 experience wasn't great. I didn't think. Like I thought it was a very shaky album, and yeah, doesn't have quite the cultural impact that he he's very well known, has a lot of impact, but maybe not the like critical plaudits that he had like from that period, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's strange to look back on just how acclaimed he was because a lot of it, I don't want to say it feels like it's been wiped from history. Of course, everyone remembers that Justin Timberlake was massive, but it's strange to think that like Jonathan Demme's last movie was a Justin Timberlake concert film.
Yeah,
that's mad, right?
Yeah,
that's
that
genuinely. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I am referencing Todd in the Shadows, but he did this great comment. He said, you know, he was the coolest guy. He said he was bringing sexy back, and we all just let him say it. Like we didn't say that. That's a ridiculous, cringeworthy thing to say. We accepted he was.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the time when I think about Justin Timberlake now, I do think of Man of the Woods because it's one of the most fractally interesting pop star flame outs. Like anyone can release a bad album. There are plenty of people who've managed to have successful careers releasing nothing but bad albums. But there's something about when he did that, and it was so transparently insincere, and everything in it was so timid. It was like, I'm gonna go country, but not country. I'm still gonna go R&B, just not particularly R&B. And everything was just so nervous about it, and it just caused people to look at it and think, wait a minute, was he always this guy? And if we just thought he was someone else, what's going on here?
Yeah, he's kind of a puzzle wrapped in a like weird
He's a
watered down
mystery wrapped in
country.
an enigma,
Right,
wrapped in a big chunky white jumper in this movie.
I told in the Shadows like review of this Man of the Woods album like included a scene from this film, like
It did.
where his characters say when Llewyn's like criticizing the song they're playing,
Yeah.
and his character Jim says, "Oh well, I wrote it." He said, "Oh yeah."
Yes.
um, I think.
Which we
Sorry,
should
go ahead.
stop actually briefly and just note that scene because it is one of the comic high points of the Coen brothers' entire career, where they sing "Please, Mr. Kennedy," an earnest protest song about not wanting to participate in the space
The space
race
program, yeah. Um,
with Adam Driver on backing vocals, and I think no, he has a very small role in Spielberg's Lincoln, and that'll be where I first saw him. But the first moment where Adam Driver really made an impact on me was this absolutely phenomenal cameo he does in this. The funniest thing he did prior to Megalopolis, in my opinion.
um, yeah, I could make an unkind joke about Rise of Skywalker, but I won't. It's like, well, I mean, you say backing vocals. I mean, I think they're like undefinable, like what he was doing in that song. It's a fantastic song. It's hilarious. It's a great scene,
Yeah,
and what an introduction. Yes.
yeah,
I think I read it's based on like a silly novelty song and a more serious like protest song about the Vietnam War presumably or going to war.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's just like the combination of but it's a composite. I think that affected like its chance of winning awards. But it is like a hilarious because there were like lots of plaudits for that song afterwards. But it can be nominated, I think, for an Oscar for song because it was based on lots of other stuff like they're mashed
yeah.
together. Um, but yeah, it's not nice to say, except it's just hilarious and it's just the conviction with which and it's kind of an indignity for Llewyn's like character to have to like play on it, like commit
Yes,
to it. And when he turns down the royalties at the end, like it's just yet
that's
another
yeah.
terrible decision.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because one of the other interpretations of the cat, I remember there was a piece in The Guardian saying, is this the Coen brothers thumbing their nose at what was then the newest and most popular screenwriting manual, which was Save the Cat? And I don't know if you're familiar with this book.
No, I'm not.
I have been to like film clubs and writers groups where it has become the bane of my existence. I don't think it's wrong exactly, but it is so formulaic. I think every generation has like a version of this book, and every iteration of it becomes more and more smug. You know, it starts off with William Goldman, a guy who said, germane to this conversation, that, um, any rule I can think of about writing a good script has been broken by the Coen brothers, and they always
Yeah.
make a masterpiece of it, and I don't know how they do it. And then, it goes on to Robert McKee, who was a bit more, strict about it, a bit more, this is the rules of screenwriting, but he would still give props to some writers who he thought, were doing great work outside of that. And then Save the Cat is just like the work of a guy who has never seen a non-Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
And the title comes from the idea is that you have to sucker in your audience by having the hero do something really sort of sympathetic in the first 10 pages. And the example it gives is, there's a cat that's about to be run over and he steps in and saves it. That's just a tiny detail that makes the audience think, okay, we like this guy. I think if that is what they're going for, it is very funny that after this sympathy getting moment, Llewyn just does an unbroken string of things that are completely unsympathetic or unintelligent that he turns down, like the royalties that could have changed his career. He messes up his audition. He has no drive whatsoever. Save the Cat goes on and on about goals, for your hero. And there's that lovely bit in here where Carey Mulligan goes, do you ever think about the future at all? And Llewyn goes, what, like flying cars? He has no ambition whatsoever.
I mean, that's really interesting. Thanks for the explanation. I mean, I'm not sure I buy that just based on that summary because, he tries as soon as the cat escapes at the start of the film through his own incompetence, he tries to palm the cat off to the lift guy, who understandably responds, the lift operator, who understandably responds, "What am I meant to do with a cat? Like I'm working. Like what can they do?" Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's a funny theory. I mean, there's never gonna be a confirmed theory. Is a well, I doubt. I think that's kind of the point, really.
They're too happy winding up interviewers to ever explain why they did certain things.
Yeah, I mean, I had I was going to save this for the end of the podcast, but one of my notes was I love your podcast, Graham.
Thank you.
I think as well as reviewing films, TVs featuring pop stars. I think what your podcast is really well known for is wild conspiracy theories, slander people, and your podcast is famous for that, right? So just to add to that tradition,
that's my brand.
Right? Cats are both the best and worst. This is a really willfully stupid point. Cats are the best and worst animal actors in films. There's a whole conspiracy because we recently saw another film, Morgiana, and we commented on how this fantastic Czech, quasi horror, gothic, fairy tale-esque film, and there's this amazing. Well, I guess most cat actors are several cats, and they just film it repeatedly and hope it works okay. And the cat just had this piercing gaze, and it was emotionally on point for every scene. And once again, the cat, I read behind the scenes, the Coen brothers hated the cats by the end of it, and said the animal trainer advised them the cat won't do what you want. It's the worst animal. You'll just film it a lot and hope it eventually works. Yet the performance in it is fantastic, and the expressions and the shots they get of it, it's a really well framed, well directed film, as it always is with them. So I don't know. My wild conspiracy theory, which your podcast is known for, is that cats are willfully being difficult to obscure how fantastic they are in films.
Maybe, yeah. Do you think that the other cats kind of resent cats like the one in Morgiana or the one in this film because they show that they can do it? They don't want to do it, but they can.
Well, I think this is an internet rumor we should start for sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the least depressing conspiracy theory I've come across in a very long time.
So yeah, that's the silliest note I had, but it just got me. I probably overthought about the cat aspect of the movie in retrospect.
Well, it's fortuitous, isn't it? As you say, we did watch Morgiana. We are having our unexpected little cinema cat season.
Indeed. I mean, I was in terms of reading too much into stuff, which this film willfully encourages. I think it's
Totally, yeah.
As I said, I'm kind of a surface level, patchy folk, I don't know folk properly. I just respect it, and it live is stunning and really And there's
Yeah.
a fantastic opening scene with Llewyn performing where it's like all
Mm.
it's quite mobile camera work for the film. It's all like kind of framed still shots from like different angles of this club,
Yeah.
and it just feels electric somehow. Like
But not electric in a Judas sense.
exactly, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
But like it's kind of like, so it does feel like amazing. But I just wonder, like, maybe is that kind of the point of folk about like sorrowful stories and life experiences. I'm probably reading too much into it, but like,
Oh
is it kind of
yeah.
reflected in the film a little bit, like what the topic of folk songs often are, and they get you through those like sometimes mundane, sometimes traumatic life experiences, or I don't know.
To an extent, yeah. I think often when directors go for like older musical forms, they are trying to mimic the tone of the music, because a lot of old musical forms are storytelling songs, more
Mm,
so than pop and rock and hip hop. So it offers you a kind of irresistible template. Sinners is a film about blues, and it is also a film that kind of feels like a blues song and has the same kind of imagery and tone as a blues lyric. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is, again,
mm,
the Coen brothers. It has the feel of a sort of really whimsical, kind of hard bitten, but still funny with it, kind of country and western song. And yeah, I think, there's an element to this where the loneliness of it is kind of folkish. Folk is quite a lonely music, isn't it, for a communal scene? I think
mm.
when you're doing something so stripped back, maybe this is just me, it's hard not to see it as a bit lonely.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, I do appreciate, like, I'm massively like simplifying it, and like a lot of music. I mean, Nick Cave said it in his like 20,000 Days on Earth documentary. You need like counterpoint, like in songwriting. You need like some kind of tension
Mm,
normally. Like even if it's like a love
yeah.
song, there's a twist on it or something's gone wrong and you're trying to get back. So there's always like some kind of darkness or like tension, like in songwriting for sure.
Mm,
But yeah, it's just that loneliness and like like kind of finding comfort where there is none, or is like a hollow comfort maybe. I
yeah.
don't know. Um, but it's yeah. But at the same time, like it didn't surprise me when I read them say they were trying to insert some plot into it. They were conscious, like, at some point of making the film The Coen Brothers, that they didn't really have much of a plot. I mean, I think I have read people compare it to like the Odyssey or things like that, and kind of like his like journey, like partly to find himself, like
Mm,
on this like long. It feels like this epic. I mean, we should talk about that. It's a really interesting. When I rewatched it, like it was amazing how many scenes that I kind of remembered like really well. Like, and one of them was the kind of road trip with
with John
John
Goodman,
Goodman's
yeah.
character Roland, yeah, and is who's his gyro character called again? Is it
He's called Johnny Five, which
Garrett
is
Hedlund?
so
Yeah,
Garrett
character. Yeah,
Hedlund, yeah.
yeah.
That's so odd, isn't it? Like the Coen brothers must know about Short Circuit. They must, right?
Well, yeah.
What's up with that?
But it's just like but yeah, it's just like weird. Well, it's not a single scene, but it's just a weird like diversion in the movie.
Interlude,
Sorry.
interlude, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, interlude. Sorry, yeah, I mean, I said you. Yeah, and it kind of feels like the most profound, like, or like metaphorical bit of the movie, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe it's just random. I don't know. It's
It always
just
felt like the saddest bit to me, and yet it is in some ways the silliest bit. It's the bit where, John Goodman's talking about having explosive diarrhea after eating Welsh rarebit. How can that not be funny? And yet
yeah,
that is a really bleak bit of the movie, I always find.
yeah, and I like Lewin's like doing doing like a folk like a folk version of like like trolling like everyone in the car, like playing his song
Yeah.
like like purposefully loudly. I loved like John Goodman's character Roland's like mocking the ukulele. Like remember that like G chord, G chord, C chord.
In jazz, we play all the notes.
But yeah, it was like kind of really sad. Like
Yeah.
especially like when they're just driving in like the snowy wilderness, like and there's a whole scene with the cat the cat in that interlude as well, where
Yeah.
he abandoned like Llewyn like abandons the cat, and that feels like really significant. And then he sees it later on, like in the forest or a different one. I don't know, but it's just like it's just like a really random and sad scene, but kind of unexplainable as well at the same time. I don't know.
It's one of the things that Noah Hawley mimics very well in the TV version of Fargo. I think that the Coen brothers movies often have these little digressions where you can't tell whether it's the thematic capstone of the movie or it's just a silly joke they put in, and it sort of mimics the idea of significance so well that that becomes part of the joke. It's quite an odd thing to have to describe to someone who's never seen any of their movies, but I suppose the classic example is in the film version of Fargo, the meeting that Frances McDormand has with her old classmate who spins this really heartbreaking tale about like losing his wife, which turns out to be completely fabricated, and that does not link up to anything else in the whole of the movie at all.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I could be criticized as like you have some films that are incredibly like tightly plotted, and but it doesn't. They somehow get away with it. I think it almost defies analysis, which is helpful for a podcast like this. But it's like it's it doesn't feel like, at least to me, it doesn't feel like some people present things as like open threads to kind of give the illusion of depth where there isn't any, or they don't really have much to say. But
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like that. It does feel profound, and you do feel like you do get the mood and the feeling of it. It's kind of similar to Wings of Desire in a way. It's like you kind of, even if you don't know exactly everything that's happening and the meaning of it all, like you get the feeling of it, and like and the cinematography of that helps, and the performances are like note perfect in it, and add to that. So you kind of like, it feels like profound, and like it's meant to be a mystery you try to unravel, like understand.
Yeah, I think this is like one. I sort of hit on this earlier this year when the arguments about Mickey 17 were going on. And I mean, I found, I know you did as well because we saw it together. I found Mickey 17 an almost preposterously entertaining film. I
Yeah.
really, really enjoyed that movie. And a lot of the case against it seemed to be, well, this isn't set up or this isn't brought back in. And it's like, I suppose when I was young, the screenwriting everyone was trying to imitate was stuff like the Coen brothers. It was stuff like Tarantino, where it was digressive. It was kind of a shaggy dog story. And if you had an obvious plot beat, you had to figure out the most fun, rambly, roundabout way of hitting it. And
Yeah.
that was the pleasure of it. That was considered like to be the standard of writing you should aspire to. And now it's all very tight planting and payoff stuff, which can be great if it's done right. Edgar Wright is brilliant at this. There is like, you look at something like The World's End, and there's nothing in the first sort of 20 minutes of that that doesn't come back in by the end. But when it's done badly, I find it is airless and mechanical and kind of joyless.
Yeah.
And I think the purpose of these, particularly with the Coen brothers, the purpose of these things that don't quite join up is to just make you understand that the world of this movie is not just a world where there's one main character and the only things that matter are happening to this main character, the world of this movie is as big and weird as reality.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I do agree. Like, if you set things up like super plot driven, like it can feel mechanical. If if
Yeah.
either it doesn't work or it works, but like it's kind of like pointless or heartless kind of thing. Like you can have great characters in a great film, but you can't have like if you don't have like great characters or like those interesting moments and scenes and things, like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it's got a great plot or not. It's just kind of joyless, as you say. No, I totally agree.
I mean, that's the legacy of Save the Cat. That's what it sort of ends up doing, where you have to tick this box by this point in the script.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
And we should say like I mean we've done quite a deep analysis, I guess. Like I mean the music's like really good, like
yeah, yeah.
as it should be. I think it was T-Bone Burnett, is that his name?
Yes,
And was it the lead singer of Mumford and Sons, who's Carey Mulligan's partner? I read like was
yeah,
also involved
yeah.
in it as well. Um, but yeah, like I thought the music was fantastic. I mean, his audition song, when he
Mm.
eventually goes on the trip to Chicago, is just like
It's really beautiful, isn't it?
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reminded when I was researching this something that I'd forgotten, which is there was a tie-in concert movie called, I think, Another Time, Another Place is what it was called, um, where people performed the songs from this, and there seemed to be an expectation at the time, which I'd forgotten about, that the music here was going to be as much of a sensation as Oh Brother Where Art Thou, where when Oh Brother Where Art Thou came out, the soundtrack was as much of a hit, if not more of a hit than a film. There was a
Yeah.
tie-in concert movie there. It did spark a little mini revival of bluegrass and other early country forms. This didn't, and I was sort of I was trying to work out why that was, but it might be because at this point there was kind of a folk revival. It was led by Mumford and Sons, and their style of folk is much less sort of introverted and delicate than this. So maybe it was just it turned up late to a party that had already gone in a bit of a different direction.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they had quite an anthemic version of
Hmm.
folk, arguably. I mean, I guess also when I was reading the notes about the film, like it did worse at the box office than I remembered. I remembered it being a bigger hit than it actually was. Like,
Yeah.
so maybe it just didn't quite break out in the cultural like mainstream as much. I don't know.
I suppose it could be as simple as the fact that Oh Brother Where Art Thou was a really fun film, and it's understandable that, people would see that and go, even though there's some dark stuff in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, there is in every Coen Brothers film, but it's easy to watch that and think, "Oh, man, I just wanna stay in that movie for a bit longer. I'll buy the soundtrack, I'll listen to the soundtrack all the time." Even though you probably do want to listen to the soundtrack of Inside Llewyn Davis all the time, it's
Yeah,
not a film that you want to live inside.
yeah. No, that's what I think that's a good point. I mean, another like a very like dark and like relevant theme was his father, um presumably with dementia, like in the care home, um
Yeah,
and the song he plays for him, um
yeah.
which is very like touching and but sad like at the same time. It kind of
Mm.
reminded me of the is it Disney or Pixar like Coco movie that Remember
Oh,
Me song
yeah,
from that.
yeah, I can't remember which studio did that, but I know the film you mean. Yeah, yeah,
And so it just yeah, it just add to that, like just really touching very dark themes. I mean it is of course like entertaining and
yeah.
like interesting and like even like with just these dark things, like I mean each to their own, but I found it like quite like like stuff happens like throughout. Even if it's like
Yeah.
cat job as stuff's happening, are you worried about like how it will turn out? So it just like for a film that doesn't have much of A to B through line plot, it does have like events and things to. So it is quite it felt like mechanically and like in terms of engagement felt like an easy watch. It's just the subject matter was difficult at times, and you just kind of got the sense, as borne out by the ending, that he wasn't really gonna. I mean, it's interesting. There's a comparison as well with his sister, who lives in suburbia as well. Do you remember that? Like when he visits her and like her son, and
Yeah.
he's talking about like giving it up and how difficult it is, and like,
Yeah.
but when she suggests like, oh well, you could just like was it like join the army again or something like that, and he can't possibly accept that idea. She's almost
Yeah.
offended, like, well, it's not that bad, like living here and doing this other thing, like, and not being with your bohemian friends, and like she tells him off for like
Yeah.
swearing because like in the 60s you wouldn't like do that in suburbia really, but it's just it was just like I think it was that interesting like idea of contrast, like and it was that classic like as I think you mentioned earlier, the classic thing about if you're going through your musical dream, like how far do you go and how long do you go for, and at what point
Yeah.
do you like give it in, or I don't know, like, and how do you approach that? Like, I think that's like kind of quite a big theme in it as well.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of the folk scene around this time, that wouldn't have been a question because, like, the scene being part of it, the political commitment that it required, that was the important stuff rather than hitting it big. It seemed kind of absurd to talk about becoming a star with this kind of music prior to Dylan, of course. Um, but yeah, it's interesting that for all Llewyn has no drive, that he doesn't, as we've ascertained, think about the future. He also clearly expects that at some point things have to start going well for him. And you can't really blame him when you see how his life's turned out.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue the ending's a happy ending in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to stretch it a bit, but it's like he, okay, he gets attacked, and that's clearly a bad thing. But it seems like it might just be a one-off random moment, and it's tied to like his awful behavior the night before. He's kind of
Mm,
apologized and made amends a little bit. Bob Dylan's performing,
yeah.
and that's the moment when this type of music's gonna become a lot bigger,
Mm,
and get that mainstream
yeah.
recognition, even if like not all individuals will benefit equally from that. Um, but I guess like maybe his like world weary, depressed view like just rubs off on the viewer and the whole
Yeah.
like cinematography and the vibe of the film. I don't know, because
I mean, I think
it didn't feel like a triumphant happy ending, but
no.
yeah,
I think a reason why you stay with this character that we haven't delved into is that he is played by Oscar Isaac, and he's just so fucking great in this. I mean, this
mm,
was a point just before he signed up for Star Wars where he seemed to be everywhere. And as with Pedro Pascal, now you did not resent his ubiquity one bit because he was so
yeah,
clearly a great actor.
yeah. He's he's superb in this, and
Yeah,
I mean, I think I read it was all like live performances, and
it
like I think
was.
there's
Yeah.
one song where they might have, maybe it was the one where Carey Mulligan's on stage where they might have done some playback, but generally it was like done live. And
Mm,
I mean, he's such a fantastic like musician and singer, like as well as a brilliant actor, and he just totally hits it pitch perfect. Um,
yeah, absolutely.
so he's fantastic in it.
And it's, I saw him recently in Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, where he's giving a big performance. I mean, the sort of obviously this being Guillermo del Toro, there are elements of every previous version of Frankenstein in the movie because he's such a scholar about these things. And I think Oscar Isaac's performance is the most Hammer Studios part of the movie. It's a big, roaring, sort of cod Shakespearean performance. So it's just wild to go back to this and realise that he's good at playing a squivelly little guy who doesn't talk much and doesn't sound happy when he does. It's could not be more opposed to that.
No, for sure. I mean, that's a really good description. He just like everything's a problem, like, and it's just like trying and I mean, I love the scene when he goes to the dinner party to find another these like well-to-do like middle upper class like New Yorkers who's befriended are very like kind to him, and that like, God forbid they encourage him to like sing a song for them. He's like, I'm not your child, I'm not your performing monkey, and like, why are you joining in with me? And it's just, it's just really funny. And then the payoff of the cat, like not being him retrieving the incorrect cat, and how they discover that's fantastic.
With the extraordinary line, "Where visits scrotum Llewellyn?" Yes.
Repeat it several times. I wrote that down. Where's this going? Where is it? So, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. There's a very strange piece of music trivia that was one of the things that made me want to do this movie, which is that "Hang Me, Oh Hang Me," the first and last song we hear Llewyn play, has a Bob Dylan link, which is not that unusual because, as we've said with the history of Please Mr. Kennedy, it was very common for folk songs to be released, rewritten, re-recorded, shared around. That was part of what the scene was about. But this is from a film that came up when Mark and I were talking about Play for Today on the recent Patreon episode. And we should probably talk about it here because we'll never get another chance to, because it's missing. It's a lost film. And there is an installment of the 1960s BBC series Sunday Night Play, the precursor to Play for Today, called Madhouse on Castle Street, which stars a pre-fame Bob Dylan. Like, before he broke through, he came over to Britain to do this TV play, and it's been junked. It's understandably one of the holy grails of missing episode collectors, but we do not have a version of it.
Is it just that classic thing where they like didn't look after it properly and they kept retaping over things, and is it?
Yeah, no one at the BBC predicted that home video was going to come in. No one predicted that like all of those archive shows were ever going to have any kind of market value or any resale value. So they just got rid of them. And yeah, no one's ever tracked down a copy of that.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible. It'd be people like, with the Lost Doctor Who episodes doing like animations and like recreations. I'm guessing that kind of stuff exists.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, the Doctor Who stuff, I mean, as painful as it is for a Doctor Who fan, we've also been kind of lucky because there's a kind of nascent science fiction fandom who would tape recordings of the show when they were kids and had that kind of what we recognize now as a very fanish interest. That means we have a better sense of what a missing Doctor Who episode would have looked and sounded like than a lot of other missing television. I don't know if there's a soundtrack available of Madhouse on Castle Street. I couldn't say if anyone's taped that, but yeah, it's an extraordinary thing to think that has just gone.
I mean, he is like, I saw a documentary about him like in the 60s. He is he's just so like cool like in that period, isn't he? And so like, well, he's not disaffected because he's very politically conscious, but like he's kind of like he doesn't suffer fools gladly like when talking to people. It has this like weird air of mystique as well a little bit when you see dialogue with him. Just fascinating anyway. Like really interesting figure. Yeah, I mean, I mean, going back to the film, like, it is a really interesting setting. Like, it's not
Mm.
just the 60s. It's 61, I think. Like, it's set
Oh,
in.
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
very
Very early.
early, like, which I think is important. Is like pre Beatles and pre swinging. Like, I mean, this is all like British reference, like swinging London and stuff. But it's kind of
It's true. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of pre a lot of political. Well, there was political strife, but like, Vietnam War, like take in
It's
affecting things in a later decade. It was just a
yeah.
very interesting. It's kind of pre a lot of technology coming in as well. A lot of like
Mm.
changes. It's just in. I mean, the pre-gentrification of like where they're living. Like
Yeah.
it's just a very. I just thought I did read that the Coen brothers said it was kind of a through line from "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," like in terms of musically,
Mm.
like in terms of the music tradition, and it was very purposeful to choose that setting. But yeah, I just thought the time period and like was interesting, that selection.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think one of the things about the early 60s is that even though they'd had rock and roll and they'd had beat literature and they'd had all these things which were, really serving notice that the younger generation were going to shake things up and demand a very different kind of culture and politics in America. But it's always interesting to watch very stuff from the very early 60s and think, God, they had no idea what was coming in a lot of
Yeah,
ways. You can't imagine anyone in this it is capable of predicting the impact that the Beatles would have, or, it is capable of predicting, the Kennedy assassination, the Vietnam War, as you say, all of this is just
mm.
Yeah, even the people with their ear to the ground, even the people who are politically engaged, don't quite realise the size of the wave they're surfing yet.
Yeah, 100%. Mm.
So I think that's kind of covered a lot of it for me. Is there anything you wanted to bring up before we signed off?
Yeah, no, I think it's mainly that for me. I mean, it's kind of a sad note, but I thought like one big point of the film
Mm,
is the loss of his partner, his musical
yeah,
partner. Um,
yeah,
and I think in other films that would have been like more like hammered home and like emphasized a
yes.
bit, where it's just kind of there in the background and elliptically, well, sometimes directly referred to.
It
Um,
goes for quite a long time before addressing that directly, doesn't it? We know that he's been part of a duo before, but we don't know that the other guy died until they're in the car with John Goodman.
and it explains, like, for me, like when he turned down like an audition where the music like producer like is doesn't appreciate the genius that's in front of him, but still says, "Oh well, I could get you paired up with a couple of other performers." He
Yeah,
just rejects it like straight away.
yeah, yeah,
And it's kind of it's so it's not just like they don't spell it out, but I think another meaning I took from it was like that massively like affects his decisions throughout the movie and some of their own goals kind of thing, and
yeah. That's very true.
understandably as well. Um, so yeah, that's a more serious note. I mean, I guess like on the lighter side, like that how brilliant the songs are, like the song of Adam Driver partway through, and also thank you for indulging my cat conspiracy theory as well. I wasn't sure if I get to add that as well. And it kind of like it reminded me a bit of a Serious Man, like maybe it's
Yeah,
closest to that. I have read other people say that similar to like kind of the dark, like melancholy and sad, but kind of darkly funny like vibe as well.
the
Like
kind
seems
of
quite similar.
existential end of the Coen brothers. The ones where the main dilemma, the main mystery that has to be solved in these films is why is this shit all happening to the same guy? There isn't like a mechanical plot reason for that. It's just that sort of relatable feeling of why is this my life?
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, no, I think we covered it. It was a good excuse to watch it again. I really enjoy it.
So yeah, there's no reunion for the duo in this. There is in Ballad of Wallace Island, and hopefully when the Carey Mulligan folk singer trilogy is completed, she'll be in a duo throughout in that one. That's what it's building towards.
Yeah.
So Joe, just remind people where they can find you online.
Yeah, so Dreaming Machine, we've got a Facebook group and we're part of the Geek Show, and like you can find our podcasts at all good and all bad podcast providers. So there's a nice mix of like we do like spoiler free like intros to new shows. We do more deep dive things as well. We've got a series called the Time Traveler's Pitch, where one of us pitches a show to someone else and jumps forward in time through the magic of time travel to see their reaction. And I'm hoping to like I was writing about video games like it's kind of a mix of writing about Dreamcast games acting as therapy for myself. So I was like I got some nice feedback, so I might try to pick that up again soon, so I'll hopefully be writing for the website in the future too. So like there's interesting stuff lined up. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll be appearing at Manchester Modernist Centre to do screening and Q&A of my short film Song of the Suburbs, History of Suburbia in Britain. You can also find more of my writing by going on to the Geek Show website at thegeekshow.co.uk or by signing up for our Patreon at www.patreon.com/The Geek Show, where we've got a lot of new features and new podcasts scheduled for 2026. We're going to have a big reinvention of that Patreon in the new year, so look out for that. But we'll be back in 2 weeks' time on this here free feed with our Christmas episode. And I know you'll be very eager to hear this, Joe, because I will be doing Magical Mystery Tour with Mark.
Yes.
to celebrate the Beatles ruining the nation's Boxing Day that one time. So yeah, look out for that.
Is it BBC's fault for playing it in black and white in the first instance? Like, yeah.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Scorsese loves it. He's a big fan of that.
Yeah, I'll very much enjoy listening to that. So that'll be a great one.
But until 2 weeks' time, when we will be back with a Magical Mystery Tour episode, I've been Graham.
I've been Joe.
And thanks for listening. We'll see you later.